John Clayton, Washington Post, 710 ESPN, Seattle. Excellent NFL conversation right here on the Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, and the free mobile app. And don't forget, you can watch the show live at 97.3ESPN.com. John Clayton joins us now right here on the Sports Bash. John, welcome back, pal. How you been?
Good, Mike. How are you?
Awesome. It's that time of the year. We're getting down to the nitty-gritty here. The league year is about to start, but Dak Prescott gets that massive, massive deal. Would love to see your take on, here's a guy. I like Dak Prescott. He's making a lot of money. One playoff win, 7-13 against winning teams, 37 touchdowns, 36 turnovers. I don't know, man. That's a lot of money, but he seems to have won that war with the Cowboys.
Yeah, because Jerry Jones lost the war. He should have got a deal done last year. And by not getting a deal done, he put himself in a position where he had to now give him the biggest contract in NFL history. I know that it's reported and written that Patrick Mahomes got a 10-year deal at $450 million, which is $45 million a year, but it's really not a $45 million a year deal. Because what you do is you count new money because he had an existing contract, and that deal was $39.8. And so that's why Deshaun Watson took $39, because he may be the fifth best quarterback in the league, but he's not Patrick Mahomes. In this case, because of the leverage that Dak Prescott had and the fact that Jerry didn't want to go the franchise tag at 37.7, he was able to parlay it, Dak was, into the best contract, right now in the league. Now, again, understand the way things are in the National Football League is that, you're not rewarded based on how good you are. You're rewarded if you're good and very good and can get the contract at the right time.
Right.
And so that's why you watched it with Matthew Stafford getting the highest salary over Aaron Rodgers. You watched it with Jimmy Garoppolo getting $27.5, and now you're watching it with Dak Prescott getting $40 million. And then he got what he wanted, a chance to at least get a new contract in the fifth year instead of the fourth year. So that's worked out well. But again, the leverage went away from Jerry and went to Dak.
No question. John Clayton, Washington Post. John, bringing Dak back healthy, what does that do for Dallas in terms of, I would imagine it puts them at the head of the line in the NFC East, but does this message say they think they're back in the NFC conference race?
It's still too early to tell on any of that stuff because, again, we still don't know what the cap is, even though they didn't move the franchise tag back. They kept it as it was today, which tells you they must be getting pretty close to getting some kind of a deal done for the salary cap. But no, I think it puts them atop the division because, you saw that their defense was terrible last year. They changed defensive coordinators, and so they might be able to fix that up. And then, Dak gets in there with a talented offense that's now the fact that he was able to get the cap number down to 22.2 because what they did is they did a 6-year deal that has 2 years of void outs. And so now because of that, they now have the ability to save $15 million under the cap that they don't have to cut the Lil Collins. They don't have to cut Jalen Smith. And now they may not have room to add much, but they can keep that bulk of the team together. The top 9 players and the top 9 cap numbers on the team, they all get to stay together, and they get to stay together now for a couple of years.
John, yesterday it was reported that Jeffrey Lurie has instructed his group to prioritize making Jalen Hurts successful in 2021 as opposed to creating true competition for the Eagles quarterback position. A little about face there, but a couple of things with this, like Lurie, the owner, getting that involved in stuff. And are you surprised that they are now essentially saying Hurts is our guy?
Yeah, I'm surprised just from the standpoint that that doesn't seem to be Jeff because Jeff really has not been a real meddling owner, taking an over control role. But that's a little unique for Jeff to be able to do that. But you can understand it because, you see what the casualties are going to be. The fact that they're so far over the cap, they have to redo so many contracts. They're going to lose so many players. They're not going to be able to add much. And so what basically Jeff is doing is saying, listen, this is a rebuilding team. This is not going to be a playoff team. And so because of that, let's stay with the young quarterback. Because at least with the young quarterback, you now have him for 3 more years, 4 years if you do the 50-year option. And it's like try to build around him as opposed to challenge him. And so whether it's a right or wrong decision, again, if they would bring in another quarterback, it's not going to change the equation on the team because, again, they're going to be down so many players and have such a tough cap situation, it's going to be tough to win.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what the ripple effect is now at pick number 6. John Clayton's with us from the Washington Post, taking a look at the NFL offseason here. What do we know about the status of now Russell Wilson? I mean, you're out there in Seattle. Obviously, there's been a lot of buzz about him. Is it more, hey, it's that time of the year, or is there legitimate thought that the Seahawks might have to move him?
It's much ado about something, but there's more nothing than it is anything else. They're not moving him. Now, think about this. Put yourself in the mind of Pete Carroll and John Snyder, the coach and general manager. You're a 12-win team that won the division. You're still one of the more talented teams in the NFC, and you're not going to lose too much, and you're going to have enough cap room to be able to add some things, particularly some of the bargain basement good players are going to be available. So now what you do is if you trade him, you don't have a quarterback, you take a $39 million cap hit, and that $39 million cap hit, any team since 2013 that had over $20 million over the cap in dead money, but 20% of their cap in dead money never made the playoffs. By the way, it's $44 million right now for the Eagles because of the Carson Wentz deal and others, and is going to grow. And so you don't make the playoffs, and then you have to then add $7 more million that you have to take out of your cap because he has a current cap number of 32, and the 39 puts another pressure of $7 million. So now you have to start letting players go. So if you trade Russell Wilson, what you do is now you become a rebuilding team that's going to win 6 or 7 games, taking the team back to where they were in 2010, as opposed to having Russell Wilson trying to build up and try to see if they can get back to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, that one's a very interesting story out there, but I kind of agree with what you're saying there. If I'm John Snyder, I'm not pulling the trigger on that deal. Deshaun Watson, we haven't heard much there. We had, thought there was going to be so much quarterback movement. Is there an about face now about that?
A little bit, because, again, it's like everything's kind of on hold. I mean, Houston's not taking phone calls on him, and to a certain degree, you can understand it. Because let's say you're Nick Caserio, your new general manager. You know your team's not going to be very good, and you have an unhappy quarterback. Okay, so now if you would grant him the ability to get the trade, and you end up coming up with a 4 or 5 win season, how many guys before the trade deadline of any talent on that team is not going to go in there and demand the same thing? I mean, all you're going to have is like a string of Jalen Ramseys going into Nick Caserio's office and saying, "Get me out of here. I don't want to be here." So you create that problem. Now, if you're Deshaun Watson and you definitely don't want to be there, and that's the case, he definitely doesn't want to be there, you make the point, it's like, now, wait a second. I can miss into the season because I got a $15 million base salary, but, didn't I get a $27 million signing bonus last year that all of a sudden you can say, I can miss 6, 7, or 8 games to make my point then, and then see if I can get a trade during the season and then still not play for the Texans. So if you're Nick, you may have to just wait this out until training camp and the start of the regular season. But if you're Deshaun Watson, you have $15 million this year, $35 million base next year. I mean, you have the ability to hold out into the season, but I don't see anything changing maybe until August or September.
Last one for John Clayton, Washington Post, 710 ESPN. We talked about Zach Ertz about a month ago when we had a conversation. It's obvious that he's going to get moved and or released. We mentioned Seattle would be interested. Still interest out there. You mentioned they don't have a third, would have to take a fourth. I don't even know that, a fourth might even not, they might even have to give up less than that. But what do you know about Ertz and maybe Seattle?
Well, of course, I mean, it got a little bit tougher for the Eagles because they didn't get any help today with the franchise fee. Hunter Henry did not get franchised. Juno Smith in Tennessee didn't get franchised. And so those guys are available. And so, I mean, are you better off to get one of these younger tight ends and be able to pick the price on that? Because, again, I mean, I don't think any tight end is going to get more than $10 million. Or do you want to trade a draft choice if you don't have any and then pick up the $8.25 million salary? So that could be very tough. And plus, he's not going to be signed next year. If you get Juno Smith or you get Hunter Henry, you can get them to a multi-year contract and probably get a pretty good cap number. Right. So it's not eliminating teams that are going to be interested in Ertz. But it could put a team like Indianapolis in a position to get him over all the other teams because they definitely want to get a tight end. And I know that they're interested, but I believe that Ertz is going to get moved, and there will be draft choice compensation. But I think it's a little bit lesser chance now for Seattle.
All right, before we roll, speaking of the tight end, Kyle Pitts, his name has been all over the place. He's kind of a tight end. It was described to us that he's an offensive weapon, not a tight end. I don't know. The highest tight end I saw was, 8 last year. We saw the guy out in Detroit get picked, Hawkinson. I mean, do we anticipate that Pitts will be higher than that?
Well, Daniel Jeremiah, I know that there's certain teams in the NFC East that he talks to a lot and knows a lot, and he's very good at what he does. He's one of the best in the business. I mean, he's saying right now he thinks Pitts is the third best player on the board. And you have to make an argument. Again, it's like the two wide receivers that are real good are right up there. But Pitts, because I know when I was doing my first mock draft, is that I was thinking about putting him in Cincinnati because, again, I think they wanted the offensive weapon after letting Tyler Eifert go a year before and then probably not bringing back A.J. Green. And then they kind of changed it off a little bit. But I can see him going as high as 5. I don't know if Daniel's going to be right at 3 because then that would be Miami. But, again, he's going to go very high. So he's a cherished player in this draft.
That'll be interesting. We'll keep our eye on that. 50 days out, the NFL draft. John Clayton, Washington Post, has the NFL covered. And, of course, he, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. John, thank you so much, pal.
Okay, Mike. Thanks.